Merhaba sayın seyirciler. Bugünkü konumuz UKIP. UKIP'in Avrupa Parlamentosu milletvekili adayı, Londra'dan aday olan Elizabeth Jones, Olay'ı gazetesini ziyaret etti. Bilindiği gibi UKIP, Avrupa Birliği karşıtı, hatta göçmen karşıtı politikalarıyla gündemde. Avrupa Birliği bu göçmen karşıtı partilere karşı göçmen gruplara bir kampanya başlattı. İlk olarak da Polonyalılardan başladı bu kampanya. UKIP de bu kampanyalara karşı kendini göçmen gruplara tanıtmak amacıyla etnik toplumların gazetelerini ziyaret ediyor. Ve Elizabeth Jones bu amaçla Olay gazetesine geldi. Milletvekili adayı Jones, Olay gazetesinin genel yayın yönetmeni Nesin Fehmi'nin sorularını yanıtlayacak. Şimdi sizleri Fehmi ve Jones'la baş başa bırakıyorum.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Jones. I'm one of the UKIP MEP candidates for the London region. London will be electing 8 MEPs on the 22nd of May of this year, and I will be one of them. I'm ranked third in the UKIP MEP list. If we get about 27 to 30%, I'm likely to be elected and likely to be representing you in Brussels. I joined UKIP because I've become very sceptical about the current political process. I've become very sceptical about the existing parties, particularly with the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, which I thought were morally wrong, and I could see would lead to catastrophe. It would appear that my view became correct, particularly with the situation with Iraq. I felt very strongly about the invasion of Iraq, and so I moved away from the existing political parties and joined UKIP. UKIP's platform is there to be immediate withdrawal from Afghanistan. UKIP's platform is that there should be no intervention in Syria. Another reason why I joined UKIP is that UKIP believes in referendums and local power to local people. I was very involved with the Westminster City Council parking campaign, whereby Westminster City Council Tories tried to enforce basically almost a no parking zone in certain areas of Zone 1. This would have considerably inconvenienced the local people. It would considerably inconvenience many people, tourists, or people outside that area coming to enjoy the facilities. It would have had a huge impact on small business, but no. The bit was between the teeth. The philosophy was green. Yes, let's do this for parking. No consultation, and I found it extraordinary that a political party could inflict this on their electorate without any warning in advance, without that being an electoral mandate. I thought this was appalling. This strengthened my commitment to UKIP, and this is where I am now.
UKIP?
Yes.
The party that our community hears is against the immigrants. Am I right to say that? It's been portrayed in the English media as the far-right party. Is that right? Or
that's completely wrong.
Completely wrong. Would you explain us why?
Yeah, for sure. The media has an issue with UKIP because basically UKIP is an insurgent. UKIP is basically an insurgent party. I would almost say it's almost a dissident party, because what UKIP proposes is that there be a complete change to the current power structure of the United Kingdom. Basically, we want a flattening out of the power structure. At the moment, we've got quite a steep pyramid with regard to the power structure of this country and how decisions are made. This results in very foolish decisions being made over which we have no control whatsoever. For instance, the invasion of Iraq. I'm sure no one thought that was a good idea. I personally wept when that decision was made. I found it heartbreaking, and in retrospect, it was the completely wrong thing to do. Who needed Abu Ghraib? Who needs Guantanamo Bay? The legacy that invasion left for Iraq has been terrible. I was also opposed to the invasion of Afghanistan. Again, another military invasion over which not one member of the electorate would have any power or sway. So what we would do with UKIP we would have referendums. So these major decisions would be sent back to the people. The people would decide how these decisions would be made. It would not just be in the hands of a very small group of politicians. I personally call these politicians the Eton lockdown. As you're aware, the majority of these politicians are from very exclusive private schools. These are the tiny minority of the United Kingdom. The bulk of the United Kingdom is state educated. I am state educated. I did not go to Oxbridge, but I don't have a say with the major decisions that overhaul my life, that take my tax money away. That is taken away from me and given to a tiny minority of people with whom I have no connection. with whom I have no commonality, with whom I have no common world view. Is that fair? Is that democratic? UKIP says no. UKIP says flatten it and have referendums. UKIP also wants to have a flattening out on a more local level. For instance, I was very involved with the Westminster City Council parking dispute. I don't know, it probably didn't affect the people in the Olay'ı newspaper catchment area. However, around about 2011, Westminster City Council, a Tory-run council, decided to bring in a decision whereby parking would be completely restricted in certain areas of Zone 1. The most popular areas of Zone 1 for nightlife and shopping were going to be basically a parking no-go zone. I was completely opposed to this. It was against small business. It's against personal safety. It's against freedom of movement. It's against disabled people. It's against the elderly. It's against people who are religious and want to go to their services on a Sunday. Maybe they have difficulties getting public transport to go to their Sunday services. Westminster City Council, Tory-led, did not give a damn what the local people thought. We petitioned, they did not give a damn. They had a series of public meetings, they did not give a damn. They did not mention in their electoral mandate when they were elected that they were going to bring this policy in. But lo and behold, because they had a significant majority, they did so, against the wishes of the people. It almost brought down Westminster City Council. Colin Barrow, who was the leader of Westminster City Council at that time, resigned. He said it was nothing to do with the parking dispute, but he was so defeated by the power of the people, he resigned. Now, under UKIP's rule, what would have happened? That decision would have been put to local referendum, and I have every confidence that that decision would have been kicked out very early on in the process of decision making, and the huge expense involved of consultations, court, government meetings, corporate meetings would never have happened. It would have been a lot cheaper, and power would have been brought back to the people, and people would have had more confidence in the government structures because they would have had control over them.
What you have just explained in detail about Iraq, Afghanistan, Westminster City Council parking or referendum, because I am trying to ask a question as far as what my community is concerned about, which is immigration. And what I wanted to know about when I say immigrants and immigration, I mean the existing immigrants who has been here maybe 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and they're living in this country as British citizens, or they live on work permits, plus the future immigrants, whereas a lot of Turkish people coming from Turkey under the Ankara Agreement, my community wants to know what UKIP, as a party, which has been displayed in the media as far-right party, which they talk about against immigration. Now, obviously, when all parties talk about immigration, Conservative talks about immigration, and the Labour talks about immigration, and the Liberals, and they don't agree on certain policies and issues. And I don't mean anything wrong about being against immigration, but to explain in detail, what are you against in detail about immigration? The existing immigrants, the future immigrants, and you personally also said that you're standing as MEP candidate. If UKIP, I'm only saying, if UKIP is against immigration, what are you doing, for example, yourself in Europe? You're representing certain people in certain different countries. So you become an immigrant yourself in Europe. So we need to be very careful when we talk about immigration, whether it's in this country or whether it's in Europe. And my community are very confused on these issues. And if you're making the attempt, and we thank you very much for coming and seeing us, we would like you to explain in detail, not about Afghanistan, Iraq, and all those issues, which you might think the Turkish or Muslim communities might be interested. We want to know about here, about working class people, new immigrants, and the future immigrants, whether it's from Cyprus or Turkey or other Turkish people from Bulgaria, Romania, or other countries might come here. So they want to know about what UKIP stands for as far as immigration concerned. Then we can move to other issues like referendum and other subjects. So that was my original questions. Okay.
I shall now return to the subject of immigration, which you brought up earlier. UKIP's policy in immigration is that there should be a 5-year freeze on permanent residents, and that there should be a 5-year freeze on people, new people coming to the United Kingdom and receiving state benefits. This is an issue of economics and practicality. I'm sure you're aware that in London many of the primary schools are now at maximum capacity. We have an issue with the NHS. Anecdotally, a friend of mine recently had a heart seizure and was left on a trolley in the corridor because of the situation with regard beds. We've got overflowing prisons. We've got a situation where the courts are absolutely chock-a-block, quite often with European arrest warrant cases. So we've got to take a very practical view. There is no issue whatsoever concerning people who are here in the United Kingdom. No issue whatsoever. However, we have to accept that this is an island. It only has a certain capacity. Our health services, education services, prison services and court services only have a certain capacity. It's finite. It's not infinite. So that would be UKIP's proposal. A 5-year freeze for permanent residency, a 5-year freeze for state benefits. Now, that said, the majority of people coming to the United Kingdom would be coming with a view to being entrepreneurial, setting up SMEs, working. People don't come here necessarily to take state benefits, and if they were coming here solely to take advantage of state benefits, the UKIP policy and the 5-year freeze would prevent that sort of person from entering the United Kingdom. It would be less attractive for that type of person with that mindset. So UKIP would be seeking to attract very entrepreneurial, business-minded people. This is why I mentioned earlier about the issues that are quite important to me about the flattening of power structure. And I think flattening of power structure would be very attractive to people who are very business-minded, and that is what UKIP is about. It's about creating money for the United Kingdom, getting a very strong economy for the United Kingdom, and this is one of the ways we see of moving that forward. Now clearly the Turkish community is very independent-minded, very entrepreneurial, very business-minded. Many of the Turkish people have SMEs, and this is the sort of community that is very attractive for UKIP, paying tax, lawful, committed to education, committed to setting up business, committed to extending the wealth of this country. For instance, when we look at the London riots, the situation that happened there, I think, please forgive me if I'm wrong, I understand it was basically only the Turkish community that actually stood firm and would not bow down to the rioters and looters' bad behaviour. They would not accept that behaviour. They would not accept the rejection of the structures of this country for authority, and were determined to protect their families and their businesses. This clearly is the sort of community that UKIP wants and will support.
Okay, I would like to emphasize a bit more on my question about immigration. If you don't mind to explain us, maybe clarify, because when the word itself, immigration, is asked or discussed, communities like ours think only of immigrants outside the EU, whereas there are immigrants also from within the EU coming to this country, and they're both used under the name of immigrants. Are you referring to those as well when you say immigrants? The ones who are from outside the EU, like the Turks, because Turks come from Turkey, which is not in the EEC, and then there are those who come from countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, and countries which they used to be up until very short years ago, that they were actually not in NATO, they were not in Europe, they were belonging to the communist bloc. So I think it is worthwhile explaining when immigration word is used, who you're referring to, or you're referring to both, or and also there's an issue. Yes, I lived in this country 46 years myself, so I'm an immigrant. I come from Cyprus. I'm not a native. I have a British passport, but I'm not English. I'm British. But one needs to explain UKIP's views about those who are British, but they lived in this country for many years. Do you have anything against them? Do you have anything? Because we ourselves are natives, we contribute, we work, we pay our taxes. So obviously, the word immigration itself not only covers the newcomers inside or outside EU, but also the existing ones. So what is your policies towards the immigrants who are settled immigrants as well, because as I said earlier, maybe through the press or not, but I think it's a duty of UKIP to, even though the media may have presented UKIP as a far right against anybody outside being English, it needs to be explained, because sometimes if it's an economical issue, then we need to be very careful about it. It's a very sensitive issue.
Of course.
If it's economics, it concerns not only yourselves as English, who are your ancestors are English, also people who are working in this country, because you talked about education, hospitals, so it concerns us as well. So on party politics, when there are speeches, demonstrations on the street by the UKIP, and we read the English press and media, maybe most of the community, not just Turkish community, other community members may not understand what UKIP stands for. So, but I think it's your duty to come out and explain in detail what do you mean by the word, and people shouldn't get offended, because if you're representing all of us living in UK, whether we were previously from another country or not, it should be a politics for all of us.
Of course.
So I think I haven't read yet that UKIP comes out and explains in detail all these issues, because most of the time, I would say that most of our community, when they hear the word UKIP, immediately they think is a racist, far-right party. So I think, this is my own opinion, I think it needs a very detailed explanation.
Well, I'll give it my best. There does seem to be a misconception with the media as to what UKIP means by, let's say, immigrants or migrants. Clearly, people who are settled here, born here, who've been here for a long time, are clearly British and come within the British banner. UKIP's proposals that there be a 5-year freeze on permanent residence and a 5-year freeze on people receiving benefits are to do with people coming into the United Kingdom, whether that's from the EU, outside the EU. It's for everyone. We're not picking and choosing EU or non-EU. However, our hands are somewhat tied, because clearly we are in the EU and we are tied by the EU's laws concerning immigration and state benefits. This is what UKIP would do, because we want to have an entrepreneurial, independent, wealthy country, and the best way we say of doing that is to, of course, we accept everyone who's living here now, everyone who's born here, whether you're born abroad and you've accepted that you are British and you identify as British, of course, none of this applies to you. It's only with people coming in. As I say, our hands are tied because of EU laws. There's very little we can do to manipulate or control the flow of people coming in. Again, very little we can do about the state benefits. This is why we're going to go to Europe and trying to do what we can to see if there's any form of negotiation, but ideally we would want to have a pure trading relationship with Europe, where we just simply have free trade. We don't want federalisation, we don't want harmonisation of tax, we don't want the European arrest warrant, we don't want the political correctness that the EU seeks to foster upon us. We think that's unacceptable. And may I just say that the migrants who've come to the United Kingdom and settled here and have embraced being British have done a huge amount for this economy. Marks and Spencer and Debenhams, Lithuanian Jewish background. We have Osram Lights. We have Alex Isagonis, who designed the Mini. We have Joseph, the Moroccan designer. I could go on and on and on. We have Sainsbury's, Tesco's. I could go on, a whole list of people from abroad who've come here who have hugely enriched this country, whether culturally or financially. My personal UKIP idol is Freddie Mercury, a gay man from Zanzibar who's Zoroastrian. So he's gay, Zanzibar, Zoroastrian, comes to Britain, embraces the British way, freedom of thought, taking opportunity, achieves a worldwide standard, gold standard in popular music, classic UKIP idol.
There's one more important question that I wanted to ask is what makes you think that for what reasons you want to appeal to the Turkish-speaking voters in London? What do you have in mind that you're going to offer to them more than any other political party, the major political parties? And I think that will be very important for them to know why are you here and why do you want to get in touch with Turkish community, why do you want to explain yourselves, what UKIP is, and also what are you offering to them, why should they vote for you.
UKIP will appeal to the Turkish-speaking people because UKIP is a car-friendly party. We're very much against constant restrictions in parking. We would reduce the parking restrictions considerably. We would be seeking to have, in the London area, free parking on Saturdays and Sundays to facilitate trade for local business people and to facilitate movement and to ensure that people can go to their places of worship with ease. UKIP is also suitable for Turkish-speaking people because it's very committed to small businesses. We want to significantly reduce business rates, and also another issue which the other parties never raise is the salaries of local government officials. For instance, I'm based in Lambeth. The CEO of Lambeth is earning about £200,000 per annum. There is absolutely no justification whatsoever for these salaries. In fact, if you go onto your local council's website, you should be able to see how much the CEO of your local council is earning, and I think you'd be rather shocked. It's not as if these people have outstanding skills. It's not as if these people are bringing their own personal capital and investing their own personal capital in your area. They're not. UKIP would cap their salaries insofar as possible at about £60,000. That money then can be brought back into the local area, reduce business rates and facilitate the opening of businesses, perhaps some form of business grant to encourage business, to encourage enterprise. This is what UKIP wants, to encourage enterprise. And the Turkish-speaking people are very enterprising. We go down Green Lane, all the array of shops here, local business, local enterprise. So that's what UKIP is about, self-sufficiency. Another policy which I think will attract the Turkish-speaking peoples will be that UKIP is very committed to giving everyone a chance. No matter where you're from, you're entitled to a chance, and that chance starts with education. UKIP would want to reintroduce grammar schools, whereby you take a test at the age of 11, and if you achieve a certain standard, you will then go on to selective education known as the grammar school. The grammar school has produced a whole tier of outstanding academics, politicians, business people in the past. That has all gone. The ordinary person does not have access to that selective education, but will do under UKIP. Furthermore, UKIP is committed to allowing people to have free university education. We would like to return to the university grant system. At the moment, people end up with a huge amount of debt when they leave university. This is inappropriate and discourages people from tertiary education. UKIP wants to encourage people to go to university, and this can be done by returning to the grant system where people basically have free university education. We say this can be achieved by withdrawal from the EU. Let's not invest in the EU, let's invest in this country. Let's invest in the people who are here and now.
Sayın seyirciler, bu söyleşinin ayrıntılarını Olay gazetesi Salı sayısında okuyabileceksiniz. Şimdilik hoşça kalın.